What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday night to you and yours. Welcome to the AATBirds weekly report here on the AAT Sports Network. I am Chip at Chip for the Birds, joined by Johnny U9322, and Mike Bauer at Rewind CEO. It is almost July in the Eagles offseason, which therefore means there is nothing happening in the Eagles offseason, which we were talking off the air, and we kind of said that that's kind of nice compared to last year.
Sure.
Last year there were Eagles Woj bombs dropping every single week, and it kept the content flowing, but at the same time it made for a very tumultuous offseason.
Dumpster fire, which we don't
dumpster. I went with tumultuous because it's it was on my word of the day calendar. Dumpster fire I think is tomorrow's slip. I think that, in my opinion, and you guys can kind of, jump in on this if you agree, this to me resets the tone of what the Eagles as a professional organization expect out of their team.
No, I think you're right. You want this kind of an off season. Well, one, it's been a great off season with the additions they've made.
It has.
And how they've made this team a lot better. And the expectations
on paper.
The expectations are very high, but no, it's a lot easier to go about this type of off season than last year. Last year was very not knowing what's going on, not knowing what's happening. You got a second-year head coach now. You have a quarterback in his second full year starting, same staff for the first time in his career, college and pro. So it's a lot to look forward to, and not the dreading that we were doing last year.
Yeah. Mike, how do you feel about the difference of the two off seasons?
I love it. Look, we had a great off season early. I like the moves that they made in free agency. I love the draft and getting AJ Brown, but no one's getting arrested. Nobody's assaulting anybody or doing anything stupid or facing suspensions. So this is the good quiet. And I understand that we want to see things happening. We want action. But this is good. People are showing up for OTAs. Everyone's getting their work in. Everybody's working out. Everybody's happy. From what we could tell, this is exactly what we should want right now as Eagles fans. Right?
I agree. I think one thing that I want to specifically, talk with you about, Mike, is you were one of the biggest people pushing for a change in the quarterback position.
Was that? I don't remember that.
I feel like it was on the top of my head. That was. So obviously now it's Jalen Hurts' team for at least this year. With they're now starting to talk about the long-term extension, depending on how this season goes. Based on how the offseason has played out, are the Eagles in a good position with Jalen Hurts at the helm?
I think they are. Man, I'll tell you what, I've been getting a lot of Jalen Hurts questions lately and what his future looks like from a lot of people. I saw an Elliott Shore-Parks tweet that the Eagles are talking about like a $35 to $40 million a year. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. Jalen Hurts is not going to get $35 to $40 million a year, and he shouldn't. I
think what you have to look for, if you look for a contract and, looking at these quarterbacks who recently got deals, look at a guy like Derek Carr and what he got. His deal, yes, on paper looks like a lot, but the way they structured it, it's like a one-year structure. So you could see a lot like that with the Eagles being a lot more cautious, because the last big contract they gave to a quarterback did not go over very well in the aspect of they had to eat a lot of dead money. Not something that they're going to want to do again. So I would say look for more of a 1 to possibly 2 year structure to get out of it early and to be able to do that. Now, of course, it all depends on what kind of season he has. And if he has a great season, it's only one great season to go off of. So there's a lot of decisions they need to make.
Let's keep in mind that the reason that contract for Carson looks so bad was because of the shortcomings of the general manager, the talent that he surrounded him with.
And the fact that they won a Super Bowl without the guy.
And look at it too. Who's glove was bloodier, OJ's or Jamon Brown's, because they both resulted in a murder. You know what I mean? It's just
Why
very
do we
similar.
keep bringing up this guy's name?
I'm sorry.
Part of the show tonight is this is great. Part of the show tonight is we each are presenting our top 10 Eagles lists of all time.
But I
And you just presented us with one of the top 10 worst Eagles players of all time.
Can we do a bottom 10 Eagles of all time, Johnny? Can we do that at some point during the summer?
Yes.
I think that is a great idea.
Okay. But I do just want to touch back on Jalen here a little bit. And, yes, I've been obviously a guy that's not been his biggest fan. And my Eagles fandom has been questioned because I'm not the type of guy that, I don't just openly embrace everything the Philadelphia Eagles do. I'm very analytic in my approach.
You're Al Bundy.
Okay,
I said it to you. You're basically, if people don't know who Al Bundy is, go search him up. Go watch Married with Children. That's you.
That's fine. But that being said, listen, if he proves me wrong, I'm happy about it because then that means the quarterback of my favorite team is doing well and my team is winning. But Adam is saying in the comments, he still thinks it's a bit too early to think about a contract extension for Hurts. I agree with that 110%. The plus side is he's a second-year player, so if he's not your guy, you don't have to worry about that fifth-year franchise tag. The downside is he's a second-round player, so you don't have that fifth-year franchise tag or the fifth-year option that you could work off of. Johnny's saying you want to sign a quarterback early. I get it, but if they go 10-7 and lose in the first round of the playoffs, how much do you want to pay the guy?
But at that point, he would have been a playoff quarterback for 2 years. At that point, he would have been healthy for 2 years, which is another reason why the Carson contract does not look as good as it could have, because he never actually got to the playoffs himself. He never made it through a playoff game.
Well, Jadeveon Clowney should have been thrown out of the NFL for that hit.
Agreed. But I think Johnny Higgins' comment here is really good. If Jalen can prove he can throw the ball, then don't wait, because the biggest knock on Jalen Hurts, the only real knock on Jalen Hurts right now is, does he have the arm strength? Does he have the accuracy? It's all about the arm. If he beats teams with his arm, you sign the man long-term right now.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make you guys a deal. If Jalen Hurts wins a playoff game, here's what I will do. Absolutely nothing. I'll tell you what I'll do. If he wins a playoff game, I will send out a tweet that says, I love Jalen Hurts. That's the extent of what I will do.
So part of my show that I did on Monday was bad takes exposed, right? Because
mine were on there.
What's that?
How many of mine?
It was my bad takes. I threw myself under the bus.
Wow, how long was that show?
An hour and 16 minutes. We only did that for about 10 minutes of it, though.
Seems short.
But again, you go with the information that you have. And this is kind of what Johnny's comment is here, right? He received MVP votes, yes. Came back early from a brutal knee injury, yes. Then he had the back injury, yes. Then he had the head injury, yes. When they signed him, it was the right choice. He was a first-round draft pick. He was your face of your franchise. It was the absolute right call. You did not expect the Nick Foles thing to happen 2 years in a row, which put you in a position where you had to have a worthy backup quarterback. And if you recall the information that we had at the time, we all crushed the Eagles organization for drafting Jalen Hurts. You go with the information you had at the time. Right now, the information we have is that Jalen Hurts is not ready to be the franchise quarterback because he hasn't, as Johnny Higgins said, beaten teams with his arms. If he takes that next step, he is ready, and we need to support this guy.
Yeah. And the thing is, the whole Jalen Hurts getting drafted, I think a lot of it was where he was drafted. If he was picked in the third round, I don't think it would have been as big of a deal knowing, hey, getting a backup. But no, it was a second-round pick. I think that's what made everyone.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of talk this offseason about the fact that the Eagles drafted Carson Strong or signed undrafted Carson Strong.
Well, because, he's going to be a backup. I'm curious to see what Jalen Hurts was thought of before he was drafted by the NFL community. I'd like to go back and see where people projected him to go, because I don't think it was a second round pick. If you guys remember, he had a very, very bad Senior Bowl performance. Then again, in all fairness, Drew Lock had a fantastic Senior Bowl.
And Drew Lock had a fantastic Senior Bowl, and the Seattle Seahawks accidentally already leaked the Baker Mayfield Seattle Seahawks jersey.
Oh, did they really? I'm curious to see what happens too, with Baker, if that actually happens, because I had heard him to Carolina. I had heard Jimmy Garoppolo to Carolina. So I'm just curious to see how that all plays out. I love when quarterbacks get traded. I don't know why it's so exciting to me. So I'm going to look up Jalen Hurts pre-draft.
So I looked it up. Lance Zierlein had his NFL.com draft profile. He had him draft projection rounds 2 to 3. He had him as 6.14 prospect grade, good backup with potential to develop into a starter. The problem was his NFL comparison was Tim Tebow.
Oof.
No, that's because Jalen Hurts' throwing motion is way better than Tim Tebow's was, and he's way more accurate than Tebow. That's a terrible comparison. I see Jalen Hurts draws a pre-draft comparison to Deshaun Watson. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that either, but I also feel like a lot of these pre-draft analysts tend to just like when they see a black
find the nearest quarterback that they can and just go, this is the guy.
Like, oh, he's the next Michael Vick because they just both happen to be black. Like it's super lazy analysis on their behalf. And I just hate when they do that.
So let's get into the spirit of this, right? Because we wanted to have a little bit of fun tonight.
I love
so let's
fun.
do this. Let's do this. We are each going to reveal our top 10 Eagles of all time. And I feel like each of us took a different route to get this list. Johnny compiled the graphics, so he can, nod or deny that we each took a different route. This was very difficult for me. I can tell you that flat out, to the point of I think I gave you, 15 names, and you told me that I wasn't allowed to.
It's top 10.
I get 15.
It. Again, you could have gotten a top 10 list if you would have excluded a couple of your guys, but we'll get into that.
Right. So, I think I have Mike's queued up first. So away we go.
You want to have Mike Mike say his first, and then we'll show the graphic.
I don't know if Mike remembers his. Oh, okay.
Looks like a receipt. Is he sure it's a receipt?
Yeah, for all of his bad takes, he's got to keep his receipts.
Okay.
Yeah, Charles is a CVS receipt.
Wow.
Actually, I've noticed the CVS receipts have gotten shorter lately. I think they've got dragged enough for that.
They're really short. We can have it emailed to you.
It's true. Or I just select no receipt. Okay, so my top 10 Eagles of all time. I think I have the order correct here. Chuck Bednarik. Do I need to explain why while I'm doing this, or can we?
We'll go through your list, then we'll put it up, and you can explain it.
Okay. Chuck Bednarik, Reggie White, Brian Dawkins, Harold Carmichael, Jason Kelsey, Jason Peters. I put John Runyon and Trey Thomas together, and I know you're not really supposed to do that, but it's just I always think of those guys together. I kind of feel like it's kind of like a Sheldon and Leto thing. Those guys go together. Bill Berge, Steve Van Buren, and I had to get my man Jeremiah Trotter on there too. I mean, there was other guys I considered like Tom Brookshire, Pete Pios, stuff like that. But
this is really tough. You really think
this was not an easy topic that you put us through?
Because I had to like here's the thing. There are players that I like better than other guys because they're just my favorite guys. Like, and Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Should we put him on here? It's like, what? Should Donovan McNabb be on this list? But we're talking like these are all-time guys because, we're looking at – all right, so let's start off. Chuck Bednarik, the last of the two-way players. He played center. He played linebacker. And people forget he punted as well. He was drafted first overall in 1948. The guy is a United States Air Force veteran. He did 30 combat missions over Germany. So, Chuck Bednarik was tough as shit, man. Like the dude was tough when the NFL was tougher than it is now. Yep. There is also, if you look on YouTube, there's the ending of a game where him and Chuck Noll are beating the shit out of each other as credits are rolling when the game is ending, which is just pretty cool. Like you got to love stuff like that. So Reggie White is a guy, obviously we all know about Reggie White. USFL, the Memphis Showboats. He was a supplemental draft pick. Also, Reggie White's original number was 91. Not a lot of people know that, but that was his original number. The Minister of Defense, and Norman Brayman should never have let him leave. Hence, that's why he was bottom line Brayman, and Buddy Ryan called him the guy in France. Brian Dawkins really showed what sound safety play does to a defense, and that's something that defense lacked until Malcolm Jenkins came in.
Mm-hmm.
when they showed that you can't just take a guy just because he's listed as a safety, Macho Harris, and throw him out there, it's not just going to work. It's just not. So Brian Dawkins is a guy that should have never retired in a different jersey. I mean, obviously he retires an Eagle, but he should have never worn another jersey. And Joe Banner should not be allowed to step foot in the state of Pennsylvania for letting Brian Dawkins get on that plane. If I was Jeff Lurie, I would have, when he got back, I would have walked him out of the NovaCare complex right there. Like, get out of my sight. I don't ever want to see you again.
Listen, the Brian Dawkins, if Howie Roseman was at power, head power, whatever, was making the decisions, look at what he did with Jason Peters, how long they kept Jason Peters on the Eagles roster. They would have never let Brian Dawkins leave. He would have never been Eagle for life.
Oh, for sure. Sure.
It's hard.
But I'll wrap this up then as quick as I can. So Harold Carmichael, they didn't know what to do with him. 6'8" wide receiver. No, there was no 6'8" wide receivers back then. By the way, Reuben Frank told a great story the other day about it was between Harold Carmichael and another guy in camp. And I think one of the coaches just had an intuition about Carmichael. Like, I think this guy's a little bit better. And that's basically what it came down to. And Harold Carmichael, obviously a Hall of Famer. So Jason Kelsey, it was really a toss-up to me between 5 and 6. I actually originally had them flipped. And the reason why I chose Jason Kelsey is this, ahead of Jason Peters. The Eagles' offensive line won a Super Bowl without Jason Peters in it. I can't say that the Eagles' offensive line is as good without Jason Kelsey in it. Every other spot on the line can be patched up. We've seen it time and time again. But Jason Kelsey is not a guy that you could just overlook. And that's not to discredit what Jason Peters did. Do you remember when they traded for him? Everyone was like, you traded a first-round draft pick for a tackle. You guys are crazy.
No, it was great.
Tight end coming out of Arkansas, and he manned that left side for years. So putting him below Jason Kelsey is no disrespect. But Jason Kelsey is an Eagles all-time great, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. John Runyon and Trey Thomas. People also forget John Runyon was brought in specifically to block Michael Strahan.
Yes, he was.
Specifically to block him. And Trey Thomas was a Ray Rhodes draft pick, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, what's that, Johnny?
1998.
Yeah. So these guys manning the line, seeing Trey Thomas wear a different jersey. I think he played for the Chargers. And then, Trey Thomas played for the Jaguars. John Runyon played for the Chargers. That was weird. Steve Van Buren. I know Johnny is saying that Van Buren has to be in top 4, but I think you see the reasons why I'm putting out there. Steve Van Buren, man, the guy racked up a lot of yards when defenses, they knew that you were going to run the ball. They really did. Bill Berge made the Eagles defense relevant. It was bad. He was also acquired from Cincinnati for a first-round draft pick, I believe. So
yeah, a couple first-round picks.
So when they didn't have a lot of picks to spend, they were still spending up to get this guy, and should have won that Super Bowl in 1980 against the Raiders, but they didn't. And, I had to get my man, the Axeman, on there. Jeremiah Trotter, again, we see what happens when you don't have a good linebacker. When you go from Jeremiah Trotter to Levon Kirkland, Mark Simoneau, anybody else like that, it's just not there. Came back, he got in Andy Reid's good graces, and without him, we don't go to Super Bowl 39. I mean, he was a part of it. There was other reasons that we went to the Super Bowl, of course. The offense was fantastic that year. But Jeremiah Trotter, without him manning the middle of the defense, we don't go as far as we do. Also, if you look back at that 2004 Super Bowl team, not a very good running team.
No.
At all. Because I rewatched Super Bowl 39, and the first half of that game was like nobody wanted to win that game. Way different from Super Bowl 52. Way different.
The problem is the Eagles had all those opportunities, all those turnovers. That's what hurt them. They were moving the ball. They just could not punch it in. The turnovers killed them. And you have to remember, 2004, you lose Deuce Staley. He goes to the Steelers. You bring in Dorsey Levens. You have Brian Westbrook, and you have Correll Buckhalter, who I believe, got hurt again that year. So and that's why Dorsey Levens came in. So, yeah, they weren't the best running team. Brian Westbrook was a multidimensional talent. But, again, Brian Westbrook's best year was 2006, where he was unbelievable. But, again, he's another guy that's not on the list there, and it's tough. Like you said, players that you leave off, that's so hard because this team is such a the lineage of this team and all the top players that they've had, through it's the 90th season this year. So after 89 seasons of Eagle football, there's a lot of players and a lot of really good players that you have to try to crunch into 10 spots.
Also, Adam's comment is Minshew coming back. He's still under his rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think this might be.
I think this is it.
This is his last year.
Yeah.
He's an unrestricted free agent after this season.
Or does he mean, is he coming back after this year? I hope so. He's a good backup. Yeah, he knows.
Even though he wants to be a starter.
Yeah, I mean, of course, most backups do. But
how about the fact, speaking of backups, Chase Daniel.
Crook.
The dude has made so much money in the NFL with there's a statistic, I forget what the numbers were, but I think it's a 6.5 yard completion average in his career. And the dude is, I think, it's an absurd amount of money for what he has earned.
Yeah, he's sticking in the league, holding that clipboard.
So here you go. Here is from Barstool Sports. Chase Daniel will surpass $40 million in earnings this season, cementing one of the greatest careers of all time.
Here it is.
Chase Daniel will surpass $41 million in earnings this year, which ranks number 62 all-time in NFL QB earnings. He started 5 games total in his 13 years. He's averaged 6.5 yards per attempt, an absolute backup quarterback legend, and he is currently with the
Chiefs or the
Chargers.
Yeah. So he shouldn't have to play because you got Herbert there. So you find the team when he was with Drew Brees, I believe he was with the Chiefs, if I'm not mistaken.
Most of his starts came with Chicago, I believe, when Trubisky got hurt.
Yeah, he only had starts.
He was an Eagle for 5 minutes.
He was almost our starter.
Shot your face. Well, we're going to go back to, at this point, the greatest Eagles of all time. We're going to get away from Chase Daniel and go to the greatest Eagles of all time list. So my list, I had a problem with because, as we mentioned, the lineage is very good. So instead of the top 10, I gave Johnny my top 15 Eagles of all time because that was the assignment. So hold on real quick. Adam says his top 10 are McNabb, Westbrook, McCoy, Dawkins, Shepard, Reggie White, Akers, Kelsey, Selleck, and Quick, which to me screams recency bias, which again, I tried to avoid on my list because it was tough. Johnny Higgins says Bednarik, Van Buren, Reggie White, Dawkins, Kelsey, Berge, Peters, Carmichael, Westbrook, and Jerome Brown. The top 5 is easy. After that, it gets tough.
I agree.
So for me, I'm going to start with my tie at number 13, which was Westbrook and McCoy. Then 12 was Joyner.
We're not listing any of these until he gets to
10. I know. 11 was Dave Akers. I had a 3-way tie at 10, which is going to be what my entire list was based off of. I based my list off of NFL Hall of Famers. If you made the NFL Hall of Fame, I feel that you have to be considered one of the greatest Eagles of all time. So I put players on here that I don't even know. So I don't know anything about Bob Brown. I don't know anything about Pete Fios.
Pios.
I don't even know how to say the dude's name.
He was listed as an end, which was precursor to a tight end in the NFL. He was actually a really good receiver.
He was a Hall of Famer.
Uncanny for tight ends at the time.
So I had them on my list, but they were all tied at 10. So my list goes as follows. At number 10, I have Harold Carmichael because he is an NFL Hall of Famer. I broke my list a little bit here to go with number 9, Donovan McNabb, who should be an NFL Hall of Famer. You win a Super Bowl, the conversation is over. I think he has the statistics and the win record to prove it. I do think he hurt himself by going to Washington and eventually Minnesota. And he did more damage than good.
Listen, he hurt himself by having too big of a damn ego and him and T.O. not getting along, or else he would be in the Hall of Fame because his numbers would surpass a lot of players. But again,
he was one of the greatest quarterbacks of his time. When he played in the NFL, he was one of the top quarterbacks. We didn't necessarily like the guy. We didn't necessarily think that he was a great quarterback, but you can't argue with what he produced on the field for the most part. The
Can I
NFC
say something?
championships, the NFC East division titles, the Super Bowl appearances. I mean, he did what he had to do.
I do want to say, if you rewatch Super Bowl 39, they do say that Tom Brady hopes to be the next Donovan McNabb. So at one point in time, Donovan McNabb was an elite. People forget
He was an
an
elite quarterback.
in the NFL. Like, people want it to be the next Donovan McNabb.
How about this, Mike? Before we get back to your list, speaking of McNabb, McNabb's head coach is Andy Reid.
Got his
Patrick Mahomes' head coach is Andy Reid. Do you think, Andy Reid and what he's done with Patrick Mahomes is kind of something that you wish you would have seen with McNabb in terms of the type of development and the type of play? Because it just feels to me
he developed him, but he also learned from his mistakes with McNabb.
And had
for sure. Oh, because he definitely tried to make McNabb fit into his system instead of fitting his system to fit McNabb. And that was one of my knocks on Andy Reid when he was here is, this guy should not be a West Coast style offensive quarterback. And yet we are forcing him to play in a West Coast style. Just stop. But hey, look, at the end of the day, almost 40,000 passing yards.
Yeah. So again, my 10 was Carmichael officially, 9 was McNabb, 8 was Eric Allen, who should be an NFL Hall of Famer, no question.
Love Derek Allen.
7 is T.O., who is an NFL Hall of Famer. 6 is Sonny Jurgensen, NFL Hall of Famer. 5 is Tommy McDonald, NFL Hall of Famer. 4 is Van Buren, NFL Hall of Famer. 3 is Bednarik, NFL Hall of Famer. 2 is Reggie White, NFL Hall of Famer, and one of the, if not the greatest defensive end of all time. And Brian Dawkins is my number 1. One of, if not the greatest safety of all time.
So my thing is, Sonny Jurgensen was 17-20-1 with the Eagles. He made his career with Washington.
But again, he's an NFL Hall of Famer.
Should have never been traded to Washington.
Yes, Norm Snead.
Now, if you were asking my top 10 favorite Eagles of all time, this list looks very different because I never saw – when I started watching football, I didn't see Reggie White play, Bednarik play, Van Buren play, McDonald play, Jurgensen play. Hell, I don't even remember seeing Eric Allen play. So
the top
I try to avoid the recency bias.
The top Eagles of all time. Jurgensen, he played a couple years with the Eagles. If you're putting Jurgensen on the list, I'm surprised Nick Foles isn't on the list because he actually
Nick Foles is not a Hall of Fame quarterback.
What about Norm Van Brocklin? Norm Van Brocklin actually won something with them.
Not a Hall of Famer, right?
Terrell Owens played a year and a half. I understand he's a
Hall
great
of Famer,
talent, but he's not one of the best Eagles of all time.
Did you know that the team led by Norm Van Brocklin, 1960 NFL championship team, only team to beat Vince Lombardi in the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. Van Brocklin is a Hall of Famer, so I may have just missed him. So he should be on my list. In which case I have to remove Donovan McNabb because Carmichael is a Hall of Fame, or he's part of that 10 quad group. Again, this list I didn't really enjoy because it was the top 10 Eagles of all time. And I went with the logic of if you made the Hall of Fame, you should be on the list. If you ask my favorite, my list is very different. Kelsey's on there. Dawkins is still the top. Westbrook is on there. Deshaun Jackson is on there.
But
Chad Lewis is on there.
Do you think
Chad Lewis, love it.
Listen, Jason Kelsey. You don't think he's one of the top 10 Eagles of all time?
When he makes the Hall of Fame, I will update my list.
He's still playing. He's
right. Notice how none of these guys are still playing. When he makes the Hall of Fame, my list will immediately be updated and he will skyrocket to the top. Kelsey, Johnny, I agree. Kelsey is going to be a Hall of Famer, 100%. 100%. David Akers should be an NFL Hall of Famer, but it's tough to get in as a kicker. But he is one of the greatest kickers in NFL history and the greatest kicker in Eagles history.
Yeah, he's one of the best kickers in Eagles history, but I understand where you went with the list. I guess you could have put some of the people you like to watch in there.
I could have.
Great Eagles of all time. That's what the list is. You didn't have.
Look, I had to put McNabb on there because McNabb is the greatest quarterback in Eagles history.
Yeah. See, look, John hit.
Right.
Tom Brady's not a top 10 Patriot because he's
not if you make the list in 2022. When you make it in 2047, when he eventually retires and the Hall of Fame eligible, then yes, he's the number one Patriot of all time.
Can I just interject something here about Norm Van Brocklin?
Sure.
Here's an NFL record. He has the most ever passing yards by a single quarterback in an NFL game, and that was set in 1951. 554 yards against the New York Yanks, in which the Los Angeles Rams won 55-14. He also led the NFL in passing 3 times and led the NFL in punting twice.
Great. That's all great things.
Here's the thing. I just think that's so impressive that the record
it is very impressive.
Passing yards in a game is over 60 years old. It happened in 1951. We're talking about there was still a predominantly running league back then. We have guys like Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, guys that just throw it all over the yard. And the record is over 60 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that he punted. He was also a head coach. He coached the Minnesota Vikings from 1961 to 66, the Falcons from 68 to 74. I mean, it's pretty impressive. He won 2 NFL championships.
The other crazy thing about that 51 team, his leading receiver was Elroy Hirsch, Crazy Legs.
Sure.
Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. His stats are 66 catches. Now, this is in 12 games. 66 catches, 1,495 yards, and 17 touchdowns. It was a pretty good 1-2 punch that you don't really hear a lot of because, again, it's like Mike mentioned, it is a long time ago, 1951. So, you have
So John, this might be why Van Brocklin didn't get the Eagles loving.
He only played here for 3 years, and towards the end of his career, like if you look at it, the win-loss wasn't really great when he was here. So,
but again, you can look at Sonny Jurgensen and say the same thing. Sonny Jurgensen was here a little bit longer, but he only started, I believe, 37 games, and then was traded to Washington. So,
yeah, Johnny's comment here, McNabb isn't a Hall of Famer, though. I think that he should be, but then his follow comment of he won't be a Hall of Famer, I also agree with that. Donovan McNabb will not make the NFL Hall of Fame. I do think that his numbers warrant the conversation. I think it is a no-brainer if he wins a Super Bowl. But because he didn't and had such a epically famous choking situation, is why he will not make the Hall of Fame. I think that he should be considered. I do not think he'll make it. Ever.
Yeah, I think the other issue is the quarterbacks that were playing during his time as well, the numbers that they put up, the amount of time that they played, because you can look at a player like a Jim Kelly who played for the Bills and lost all those Super Bowls, and you can match up the two players, and they're very, very close in terms of their numbers. But again, the eras were different because he played in a different era than McNabb. McNabb played with guys, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. You have Drew Brees. You have all these guys that he played with, and you look at their numbers, and you start because of the offensive game, the way it was, and it's unfortunate. You won't see that if like you said, if he won a Super Bowl, you can kind of compare it to like the Eli Manning. If Eli Manning has no Super Bowls, he's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. I still honestly, I don't think that he is a Hall of Famer either, but he did win 2 Super Bowls and he's going to be there.
Hold on. It's funny because I was going to make that comparison. Eli Manning has almost 20,000 more passing yards than Donovan McNabb.
Then he's a Hall of Famer.
I did not think it was that big of a discrepancy. He's also 117. However, McNabb was elected
He finished his career 500.
Yeah. McNabb was elected to 6 Pro Bowls and Eli went to 4. I'll say this in regards from Eli to Donovan. Eli was an Iron Man. The only time he missed games is when Ben McAdoo benched him for Geno Smith. Not that it was his fault. It was not Eli Manning's fault that the Giants were terrible that year. You know what I mean? And then later on when Daniel Jones came in, obviously they needed to make a change there. But, the 2 Super Bowls really does it. I think without that, It's a little bit of a different story, but dude threw for a lot of yards, 366 touchdowns. It's 244 interceptions as well. Um,
All right, well, listen, we got to stop the Eli Manning love. It's all about the birds. This is not okay. We have to stop it.
I didn't hate Eli Manning. He made a great face when he got smacked.
He did, and he
So
got smacked quite often.
he
All right,
did.
Johnny, run down your list, sir.
All right. So what I had on my list was number 10. I had Seth Joyner. I know a lot of you guys might put Bill Berge. There's some comments for Bill Berge. Seth Joyner was just a great linebacker all around in those, Buddy Ryan defenses. He just could do anything. Sacking the quarterback, intercepting the ball. He just did so many things. And I think he's a linebacker that should be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm gonna stick by that with the way his numbers are, comparing to other linebackers in his era that are in the Hall of Fame. Number 9, I have Randall Cunningham. I know he didn't win anything with the Eagles, but the type of dynamic player he was and what he did for the Eagles, the ultimate weapon, what he did on the field. Unfortunately, didn't have a coach that supported him in terms of getting him the offensive line or helping him that way. But again, he was such a dynamic player. I think with Eagles history, and then the way I went with it was, these people, you think of Eagles history, these 10 guys, I don't think you could take them out and still talk about the Eagles history just because they're the focal point of them. Of course, I left off a lot of guys. Number 8, I had Donovan McNabb, probably the best Eagles quarterback in history, franchise history.
Yeah.
It can be debated. People want to say Nick Foles. That is fine. And I will always come to the argument when people want to put Nick Foles on a Mount Rushmore for the Eagles or top 5 Eagles of all time. I will tell them right then and there is Trent Dilfer, Doug Williams, Jeff Hostetler, Mark
Joe Flacco,
Brad Johnson. Are these guys tops on their team? No. So yes, I understand he did a great thing for the Eagles. He won the Super Bowl for him. He coming in as a backup. He did some great things. He's not. So that's why I always comment with that, because you always get that comment. Number 7, Harold Carmichael, a heck of a weapon for Ron Jaworski, for those Eagles teams. The Eagles did have some pretty good receivers in their history. Chris Carter unfortunately left. He had, found himself in Minnesota. Harold Jackson was a great deep threat. Tommy McDonald, which I will get. I didn't put him on the list, but again, he's another guy. Mike Quick never gets hurt. He's easily a top 10 Eagle of all time and a Hall of Famer, I believe. Number 6, I have Steve Van Buren. It was tough not putting Brian Westbrook or LaShawn McCoy on the list.
Yeah.
But again, Steve Van Buren, in a time where they, like Mike said, they knew you were going to run the ball, racked up yards. He was the focal point to those 1948 and 49 championships. They made the championship game in 47 as well, and they lost. So he was a focal point in those championship teams. He was the face of those championship teams. So that's why I have him on the list. Number 5, Jason Peters, one of the best left tackles in franchise history, if not the best left tackle in franchise history. People like to think, again, recency bias of his last couple seasons with the Eagles.
He was dominant when he was there.
But he was absolutely dominant with the Eagles. Number 4, Jason Kelsey, one of the best offensive linemen the Eagles have had in their history. Could do so many things. Undersized center, but again, the toughness, and he's an Iron Man at center. He plays hurt, injured, and he's there every single Sunday. Number 3, Chuck Bednarik. I love Chuck Bednarik. I met him a number of years back. Was a great guy. Was great to talk to as a kid and everything. But he's the Iron Man. He did so many things. He was a tough SOB. And think about it. He's the epitome of what Philadelphia is. These top 3 guys, these top 4 guys, there's like the epitome of what Philadelphia is. And of course, these top 4 guys are what I posted earlier on the All About the Birds page this week, Eagles Mount Rushmore. But number 2, I have Brian Dawkins. Again, he just, watching him growing up as a kid, by far my favorite Eagle, because I got to witness it firsthand. Number one, I have Reggie White. To me, Reggie White's the best defensive player of all time. I know people want to put Lawrence Taylor. I understand that. But again, Reggie White, when you take 330-pound offensive linemen and throw them with your arm, literally off their feet, and the way how productive he was, he averaged, I think, more than one sack per game in his career, which is crazy to think about. It sucks that he didn't get to finish his whole career with the Eagles, but again, that's my list. Unfortunately, you left some guys off there. Westbrook, Zach Ertz, Fletcher Cox, Deshaun Jackson. There's a lot of guys.
Yeah, none of us mentioned Deshaun Jackson.
That's tough. So there's a lot of guys that left off the list, and it's tough because you only have 10 spots.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like this assignment. Johnny, I agree with this. He's your number one if he doesn't go to Green Bay. I hate we had to share it. I agree. BWF says Andy Reid can't win big games, but do you think one of the reasons McNabb is in the Hall of Fame because of that? Absolutely. It was a combined thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, it did. And this is tough because, and the reason I thought of this was there was a lot of talk about Eagles Mount Rushmore. I know Elliott Shore Parks put something out which was absolutely awful. His Mount Rushmore of Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb, Brian Dawkins, and Howie Roseman. Basically, not even talking about the history of the Eagles by doing that. So that got me thinking and thinking, hey, what about the top 10 Eagles of all time? Maybe something also we could do, like Mike said, the worst Eagles of all time.
I want that so bad.
Or also,
that's going to be a fantastic show.
We can also do, I think, Chip, we did it last year, or we did it during the pandemic, I believe.
Was it the naughty or nice list?
No, not that. Picking an all-time Eagles team where we do like a draft. So,
I don't remember doing that, but that sounds fun.
Well, maybe you weren't on that. Okay, so that's something that would be fun. Is that we do an episode of, we draft offense and defense. We go pick by pick throughout the whole history of the Eagles, and we pick our teams. I think we did do that when we kind of first started doing this. So, two new faces, we can, bring that back because I think that would be fun. It's a good conversation topic for people to see, whose team's the best, whose team is better than the others. But again, I think that's another fun aspect that we could do. You like this when there's not much going on. You got some conversation starters, got some topics. But I think it was a good assignment. I know it was tough.
I didn't like it.
I know Chip didn't like it. Now, before we wrap it up, the Eagles did make a signing. They did sign a safety, Jaquiski Tart, a veteran safety. We talked about the safety position on this team being the one main hole. Well, I know Chip is the whole punter situation's the one main hole left, but we're not going to talk about that. We'll talk about the safety position. So you get a guy 30 years old. I know a lot of people, first thing comes to mind when you think of him was that Rams 49ers game where he dropped basically a punt that he could have been an interception in that game. But I think it's a great addition for the Eagles. It gives them another option, a veteran option, a guy that, it helps because if there's an injury or something along the lines, you don't have to rely on the depth aspect, and it gives them depth. So I think Jaquiski Tart's a great addition. Now, he's not a playmaker, but he's going to come up. He's going to hit you. He's good in the run game. He can do a multitude of things for this defense and for Jonathan Gannon with having Marcus Epps and Anthony Harris and not having to play those two guys a lot. So having a veteran who's been around the league 7 years with the 49ers, I think it's a great addition. And I know he had a lot of interest from other teams, so that's why the Eagles swooped in. And
clever
picked him up.
Why are you like this?
Why am I like this?
Yeah,
I don't know, because I'm ready for football season, and it's on June 29th.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Exactly. We're all ready.
Well, with that, next week we got a cool show. John, you want to talk about a little bit what's happening next week on Wednesday night?
So next week, we're going to have Chris Franklin from NJ.com joining us, talk a little bit about the Eagles offseason, to maybe break down the Eagles offseason, his thoughts going into training camp, which is a little less than a month away. So we could definitely get into some Eagles topics with him, the roster, the offseason they've had, and just get in some topics there with him. But I think it's going to be a great guest, great show for next week.
Cool. A lot of great sponsors. Make sure you're checking them out. Statement Games, fun free twist on fantasy sports. Links in the bio. We have the AATSportsNetwork.com/shop. Of course, please buy the merch, as Mike is wearing the Jeff Warner Promotions shirt.
Buy one today.
Symbol.com stock market for sports. Use the code AAT Sports when you sign up. Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant in the Old Town Shopping Center, right near the Stuff to the Grills, also in the Old Town Shopping Center, StuffToTheGrills.com, and Vinny'sPizzaPA.com. Gentlemen, it's been real. It's been fun, and I dare to say it's even been really fun.
I agree.
Make sure you're liking, subscribing, and sharing. We are still running that promotion where when we hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, we'll be giving away a signed Brian Dawkins picture. It's pretty, it's beautiful, but it doesn't come out until we hit 1,000 on YouTube, and then we'll go to one of those 1,000 people.
Yep. Any subscriber has a chance to win.
Anybody. So, I'm Chip. That's Mike. That's Johnny. And as we end every show here, be positive, be happy. I'll go Birds.
Go Birds.